What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Week 8 NFL Power Rankings show. Now about halfway through this wild NFL season, I think we're starting to get a little bit of a better idea of who the good teams in the league are, and we certainly are going to do our best in this video to rank how good I think each team is stacking up against the rest of the league as we move forward. Before we get started, if you could do me a huge favor, please do hit that like button down below. It really helps me out. Also, make sure you're subscribed up here. I came up with a new concept that I think you guys are going to enjoy a little bit like this series, kind of doing weekly player power rankings, kind of go in, splitting it up. Maybe one week do skill players, pass rushers another week. It's a workshop idea, but something I think I'm going to start up on this channel this week, probably on Friday. So make sure you're subscribed. You can look forward to that content. And let's go ahead and get started. So our bottom tier in the rankings is going to be a little bit more full than we've had. We've got 7 teams in the bottom tier, but a familiar face returning to the number 32 spot, my 32nd ranked team. Coming into the year, the Houston Texans, returning to this spot. Just, I don't want to say going through the motions, because it's not like they aren't trying, but there's only so much this team can do with Davis Mills and company. Then a massive faller here with some pretty big news dropping today. So the Indianapolis Colts are going to drop down here to the 31 spot as they announce Sam Ehlinger is going to start. And I don't see this ending well for the Colts this season, especially with that offensive line. But Matt Ryan has played so poorly, why not make this move? And if you're Jim Irsay, I do want to applaud him, because he's going to get a lot of criticism for this, and we can only speculate on this decision. But from the sounds of it, Jim Irsay stepped in and said, we're going to start the kid. He's probably going to suck, and I'm tired of all reshuffling the quarterback position every year. 5 quarterbacks in as many years for the Colts. So let's see what we got in the kid. He's probably going to suck, but that's fine. Let's get a good pick. Let's get a good quarterback and start building around him. And that's the best thing for this team. So I want to give Irsay some credit. Very few owners have the foresight and guts to do something like that. And if it's true that that's what he's doing, I think it's commendable. But the Colts with Sam Ehlinger, they weren't a great team with Matt Ryan, but going to Sam Ehlinger, I don't see this being a hell of a lot better. I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better here. Then the Carolina Panthers moving up 2 spots after they stun the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. The signs have been there with this defense. They were there the week before in Steve Wilks' first opportunity as this team's interim head coach, but in that Rams game, they didn't let PJ Walker throw the ball at all. It was a elementary peewee football offense the week before. They come out this week and let PJ Walker push the ball downfield, and my goodness, did he push the ball downfield. I am a PJ Walker stan on this channel. Now, he's had his ups and downs since he left the XFL and got to the NFL, but I'm definitely intrigued. I'm intrigued by PJ Walker with these playmakers, a team that is retooling, rebuilding, but perhaps winning a game against the Bucs, you keep DJ Moore, you keep Brian Burns, you build some momentum into next year, and hell, maybe PJ Walker shows something. Maybe Steve Wilks is your head coach next year. I don't know, but there are certainly some fascinating storylines for the Carolina Panthers, whereas I can't really have said that a couple weeks ago. And then at number 29, the Detroit Lions. They really make me sad, man. I figured at this point they would have found a way to win some of these games, pulled some upsets, and they just haven't been able to do it. Really can't put anything together in any given week. The defense continues to struggle. Jared Goff, just not it. They lose Amon-Ra St. Brown early in this game, and just a sad week for the Lions, who are really having a hard time winning football games. Then the Chicago Bears moving up 2. And I just got to applaud Matt Eberflus's squad, getting them to really overachieve on both sides of the ball at this point. The Bears offense has actually played pretty well. Fields has really started to settle in a little bit. He's making less mistakes. He's playing better in time, really learning when and how to use his feet in a more effective way, I think. So that's good, of course, but honestly, these receivers have stepped up. The offensive line has stepped up. Not that those things don't need to be addressed, but they've played above what you would expect when you look at this team's roster on paper. And of course, that's been Matt Eberflus's MO with his defense, right? And that goes back to the Colts. It's been that way for the Bears from week 1 against the Niners. This defense is stepping up. You're getting the rookie Robinson up front, these rookie defensive backs, Roquan having a great year. Matt Eberflus got the most of that Colts defense for years, and now he's getting the most of this entire Bears team. And even if, I mean, your expectations for the Bears should not be super high right now, but you can feel pretty good that this is a very effective culture glue guy head coach in charge here, and I've been impressed. Then we have the Washington Commanders at 27, going up +2 after coming back and beating the Green Bay Packers. Taylor Heineke, to his credit, was unconscious in the second half of that football game, and I guess that term has taken on a new meaning in this year's football season, so I guess I should be careful with that word. But either way, he was unstoppable. Third downs, hand in his face, tight coverage, just making ridiculous throws. He is a young Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I think he has sparked this offense a little bit. I still don't really trust this defense. I know they've played a little bit better these last couple of weeks, and they hope to get Chase Young back. The environment with this team, to me, just has kind of a rough feel about it. But hey, they won this week. They climbed to 3-4, and we'll see where this goes, I suppose. Then the Atlanta Falcons at number 26 are going to round out our bottom tier. And this is the beauty of these power rankings, right? Last week, they dropped down 1 despite a win. This week, they go up 1 despite a loss. I don't think my opinion on this team has changed too much. They have a game plan offensively that if their defense falters, which, as I said last week, I don't trust this defense. They come out with some injured players in the secondary as well and fall down 28-0. And this team just, they can't really get off script and do a whole lot because their talent is just not good on either side of the ball. But I do think they're a well-coached team, and they're kind of staying put for the most part this week. Just moving up because the Colts, I think, are a worse football team now with Ellinger. So let's get into our next tier, a smaller tier here, and yes, you guys are going to have some fun with the name I have for this tier. This is the Purgatory and Predators tier because we have the Steelers, the Patriots, and the Saints, who I think are experienced, maybe talented teams that are just kind of stuck in purgatory right now. And then I felt like the Browns also belonged in this tier, but they're not in purgatory because they have Deshaun Watson on the horizon. But, it worked out. So the Steelers at 25, there's just not enough explosiveness here, right? Yeah, and you've got a rookie quarterback in there. I do think Pickett's playing pretty well, honestly. I tweeted this out that he's gotten really unlucky in that he has 7 interceptions here early on in his rookie debut, but only 3 turnover-worthy plays per PFF. Just a lot of, he had like a Hail Mary one. He's got balls bouncing off receivers' hands, getting intercepted. He had this week one where his receiver fell down. It gets intercepted. So he's had a really unlucky start. I really do think he's running a pro-style offense, looks efficient, looks methodical, good pocket presence, and just kind of in general looks the part. But defensively, they're also kind of lacking some firepower. That pass rush is just, nobody's afraid of the Steelers' defensive line right now without TJ Watt. So they're just not a high-end explosive football team, even if they're competitive and well-coached on a week-to-week basis. The Patriots, likewise, do definitely lack some of that star power, that explosiveness. You do have Bill Belichick, who, as we've seen the 2 weeks prior to this week, they can come out with a great game plan and dominate games. This week, not so much. Bailey Zappi in there, Mac Jones playing hurt. That's a whole different conversation. Look, the Patriots are fine, but they're just not a very good team. And they're capable of losing to bad teams, too, because the roster talent is just not anything special here for the Patriots. Then the New Orleans Saints, really tough team to know what to do with. I still feel like the Saints are going to turn a corner one of these weeks. They've had some really close games, some tough losses against good opponents these last few weeks. They are moving the ball really well with Andy Dalton. If you look at their offense, he made 2 really costly mistakes in this game. One goes for a pick 6, one's an interception in the red zone. getting some very serious late Ryan Fitzpatrick vibes with Andy Dalton, and I still don't think you take him out, even if there were some interceptions there. And there was another pick six that wasn't on him where it bounced off the receiver's hands. So I do think they move the ball offensively, and I do think they have talent defensively, but I'm kind of also done betting on this defense to turn things around either. That pass rush with Davenport and Cam Jordan has not been particularly good. No help on the horizon from Peyton Turner anytime soon. They've got injuries in the secondary, so yeah, I mean, Purgatory pretty much describes those last three teams. And then the Browns here at number 22, they just can't find a way to win these games in the end. And this week, super close against the Ravens. And it was a very, I guess, familiar sight for this Browns team. You know, they moved the ball all game. They ran the crap out of the football. But when push came to shove at the end of the game, they couldn't get the job done. All these losses feel like they're within 2 minutes and losing by a score. So they're feisty. They're probably going to pull off an upset one of these weeks. But they also just, have Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback and a defense that's underachieved. So that's a weird tier. Let's move on to a more exciting tier, a team of more fun teams here. And the name of this tier is teams that I want to trust. I enjoy watching these four teams, but they all have just question marks, whether it's a newness factor about them or the week-to-week volatility of these teams. So the Jacksonville Jaguars at 21, only dropping down one spot. I mean, they got the ball all the way down to the 1-yard line against the Giants, and they couldn't finish the game. For them, the amount of mistakes that they make has really started to pile up. You go back to the Eagles game, the Texans game, here against the Giants. They're struggling to take care of the football. They're committing penalties. It's just not very clean football from the Jags right now. But you watch them play, and they are pretty solid offensively. They can move the ball. They can run the ball. They have explosive players there. And defensively, they have some guys that can run around and make plays. So this is not a bad football team, but they just right now are really good at beating themselves. Then the Seattle Seahawks at number 20, moving up 5 this week. And I'm very close to looking at this team as not just a playoff contender, because they're definitely that, but a serious NFC contender. Because when everything's working for this team, they really do look like a team that can go head-to-head with anybody in the NFC. AFC is a different picture, but it really just comes down to two things. I don't trust this defense at all. I still think you look at this defense on paper, it is one of the worst in the league. And I have given Geno his credit. I made a Geno Smith film room post. If you want to check that out here on this channel, I love what I'm seeing. I'm cheering for Geno about as much as any quarterback in the league this year. But how much can I trust it to continue? It's just, I think if you're being realistic, I think not even a 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach, but just being a little bit hesitant to jump all in on Geno and this team being a legitimate playoff team, I think is dangerous. So it's more just I want to see a little bit more sample size with them. It hasn't always been pretty with Geno, so but it has been more good than bad. That's for damn sure. And also DK Metcalf's going to miss significant time. That is, I probably should have even led with that. But yeah, this Seahawks offense, Kenneth Walker, all these good rookies on this team, this is a very fun football team, and they kind of beat the crap out of the Chargers this week. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals at number 19. Kyler is a different quarterback with DeAndre Hopkins. That is for damn sure. And I think a big part of it is I think the play calling is better because they actually have a methodical passing game. They have a receiver that they can draw real plays for instead of what was really just a rudderless offense centered around Kyler running around, whether it was the design run game or Kyler improvising. Now they have an actual structured offense that they can build around DeAndre Hopkins. I think that really elevates the floor and ceiling of this offense. And defensively, they've actually played all right these last few weeks. So things trending up for the Cardinals, +5 this week. Then at 18, probably not going to make too many friends with this one, but I am going to lower the Jets 3 spots this week. For one, Zach Wilson just really hasn't been that good these last couple weeks. If they're going to keep winning, they are going to need more from him moving forward. I still like Zach Wilson, and I'll be pulling for him, but I don't think you can trust him in this offense right now, especially after both Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker go down for the year here. I don't really like the outlook for this Jets offense moving forward, right? And I think that's pretty fair. Now, this defense is awesome, so they're going to keep them in games. Hopefully they can keep winning these close ones. They seem well coached at the moment, so it's not all bad, but definitely a costly win this week with those injuries. Those were probably the two best players on that offense from this season going down for the year there with Hall and Vera Tucker. Now, they did trade for James Robinson. I do like that, but I don't think he brings the same explosive big play factor that you had from James Robinson. You know, I think he helps you sustain a good running back in the building, but it's not replacing what you were getting from Breece Hall, which was really explosive offense. And then we have our next tier here, and I think you guys are going to like this tier, at least the name of it. It's Old QB Who Dis. And I think you know who's going to be in here. It's the Denver Broncos at 17, the Packers at 16, and the Bucs at 15, dropping down 10 spots. So Denver at 17 definitely going to have to justify this one a little bit, especially putting them above the Jets, who just beat them this week. So, you know, I'm looking at my phone right now because I don't even remember what the Broncos' actual record is. Goes to show you that I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in record here. I mean, yeah, they're 2-5, but expectations are a funny thing. All the talk is about the Broncos and how explosive this offense is going to be and how they're going to let Russ cook and all this stuff, and that's just not what the identity of this team has been. It's been very easy to forget, however, because they're losing and because the offense hasn't been great, that this defense is phenomenal. Geno Evero is really just putting together great game plans and letting these guys thrive defensively, and that's a real thing. So I do really like this defense, and let's face it, offensively, they probably beat the Jets if Russell Wilson's in there. They're right in there in the fourth quarter with Brett Rippon, who was not good in this game. I did that film room on Russell Wilson, and you know, it's obviously not all great. I was critical of Russ in that video, but there's also a lot of signs that this offense can correct at least some things to be a more functional offense into the future. And maybe I'm giving them too much benefit of the doubt, but when I think about the Broncos and I'm just asking who the best teams are in a neutral field, I still think this is about the right spot for them. They're not a horrible football team, even though they're 2-5 and even though they haven't met their expectations. And then the Packers at 16, and there's just so many different directions you can go with this, and I certainly will on this week's episode of the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. So if you guys enjoy my analysis, you want to check out my podcast, it's posted on a different YouTube channel here. You can also search for it, but that link is in the description below for the Fully Inflated Football Podcast if you want to hear me really go off on this Packers team. But we're recording this right at midnight here on Monday night, Tuesday morning, and Brian Gutekunst has still not made a move for a wide receiver. It's already about 3 years late, but everybody knows that it's time. Not only did they already need to do that, but now you've got basically every receiver on the team is either hurt or can't catch a football, and it's just malpractice at this point for them to not make a move for a wide receiver. It's baffling. It is exhaustingly baffling. And it's exhausting that the Packers won't fire that fraud because he's running the team into the ground. Now, ranking the Packers is really tough. You know, they're down bad right now, down really bad. I don't think the offense is going to be any worse than they were against Washington this week. I guess maybe that's too much benefit of the doubt, maybe for Rodgers and LaFleur, but I don't know. I think those guys have earned a decent amount of benefit of the doubt. And I think this defense actually is playing really well. Scored 2 defensive touchdowns in my book, even though the refs decided one of them had a phantom holding call that kind of changed the outcome of that game against Washington. But either way, I do trust this defense moving forward, and I think they're going to play a little bit more of a competitive game on Sunday Night Football against the Bills than we might expect. I don't know if they'll win that game, but again, I just think ranking this team is a little bit tough. They're at their breaking point. I do think they're a team that will make some adjustments and play a little bit better than they've been playing moving forward, but man, what a frustrating year for Green Bay. Then Tampa Bay at 15. maybe even more of a frustrating week than Green Bay this week. They're coming down 10, and this was a huge surprising outcome against a Panthers team that just traded their franchise, offensive player. They have fired their coach and looked completely anemic offensively the week before. And they lose by 18 points to the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the offense, it's almost like everything has just been turned down. I think Tom Brady's been turned down a little bit, though I still think Brady's playing pretty well. The offensive line has been turned down a little bit. The receivers have been turned down maybe a good bit. And then, defensively, they've definitely been dialed down a little bit. That pass rush has not been as dominant. I think the play calling defensively has maybe not been quite as great, with Todd Bowles being distracted with head coaching duties. And I think offensively, they do miss Bruce Arians' experience and ability to make adjustments mid-game. So everything is just, the dial has been turned down in Tampa Bay, and I think it's been deflating for them. I think they feel, they don't have that it factor as a team. There's just not a lot of explosiveness for them on either side of the ball right now, especially offense, though. So it just kind of leaves them towards the middle here, with teams like Green Bay and Denver. But then we go to our next tier, and it's a team in their own tier, the New York Giants. Going to definitely get some love this week, going up 7 spots, taking down the Jags again. And the name of this tier is the tryhards. And with all due respect to the shorter guys out there, the Giants remind me, and I like to play some pickup basketball, the Giants remind me of those really short players, 5'7", 5'8" guys that just, they're throwing elbows, they're diving for loose balls, they're good at hitting mid-range jumpers. They just are playing 150% every single minute, and they don't go away. And that's the New York Giants. Now, it's not a fluke at this point. I can really see their formula that puts them in a position to win these games. Now, it's very fitting that it came down to literally the 1-yard line. They tackle the Jags player short. They give up a pass. They stop them right there at the 1-yard line for what would have been a game-winning touchdown, because their margin for error is so small. They're not going to come out and get big leads. They're just not. But they have excellent play calling. They know what levers they can pull, the ways that they can move the ball, read option, play action boots, get Daniel Jones going in the ground game, feed Saquon Barkley. They have such a good game plan offensively that they do just enough, and then they're really feisty defensively. They might give up some chunks. They're aggressive, but they play good situationally, and as a whole, the team just avoids mistakes. So you can really see the coaching. And it is true. I will stand by the fact that the Giants are going to make you beat yourself. And that's what happened this week. The Jags, they fumble a ball into the end zone. They stop short of the line. They get down to the 1-yard line. They had way more penalties in this game. And that was the difference. Can this team go head-to-head with a real offense that's really clicking? No, I still don't think so. But man, the job that Brian Daboll is doing here, I don't know what he could do at this point to lose Coach of the Year. Even if they, finish, what do we got, 10 games to go? Even if they finish 3-7, that's still a Coach of the Year for Brian Daboll, because this team was supposed to be one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the NFL. So I'm just here for the ride at this point with the Giants. But then we get into our next tier, and this tier is interesting because a lot of these teams I don't even think are like teams you would traditionally view as playoff teams, but in the context of this season, they're kind of playoff teams because it's just a crazy year in the NFL. So these are my drunk playoff teams. I think wild card weekend in general, these are teams that are probably going to be there wild card weekend, more or less, and that weekend's going to be freaking crazy, unpredictable, and drunk this year. So let's get into this tier, starting with the Chargers at 13. Injuries and coaching, very frustrating with the Chargers. They lose to the Seahawks this week. I think on both sides of the ball. Brandon Staley is supposed to be a defensive guru. There's been really no signs since he got here that this is a well-coached defense. They get lit up by Geno Smith, now losing J.C. Jackson, porous zone defenses. I just don't like what they do on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, I really don't like what they do either. Overly conservative. And you have Justin Herbert as your quarterback. So, Jamari Sawyer continues to play well. The offense wasn't a train wreck this week, unlike the defense was. Tough team to know exactly what to do with. There's just still a lot of talent on this team and a great quarterback there, so you got to give them some benefit of the doubt for sure. But obviously a very frustrating week for the Chargers, winning a game that they were supposed to win. Losing a game that they were supposed to win. Then the Raiders climbing up to, very glad I stood my ground on them. This is why you don't always want to look at record. You want to look at how teams are losing. Are they close games? Are they against good opponents? And that has been the case with the Raiders. They finally get a very winnable game against a poor opponent, and they light them up. And that's what you want to see from this offense that's played pretty well. They've continued to really just lean into Josh Jacobs. This run game is one of the best in the league. The offensive line has been okay. Derek Carr and these receivers, this offense can score. So they have an element of consistency there that a lot of these teams just can't say about any side of the ball. So I love that about them. A team very capable of taking advantage of a poor schedule moving forward and really getting into more of this top 10 mix this year and maybe living up to some of those expectations that they set for themselves here. So I'm glad I stuck by them despite the 1-4 start. Then the Rams at 11, a good week to be on bye week this week here, but I am still worried about that offensive line. We'll see what they look like when they come back here. But they're a team that has potential to dip down into that old QB who dissed here because they feel a little bit more like that, but maybe a little bit more put together. Then the Titans at number 10, very similarly to the Giants, honestly. I think they're a more established, potentially more talented version of the New York Giants in that they're going to make you beat yourself. They know what they want to do offensively. They're going to avoid mistakes and play physical and hope they come out with a W in the end of the game. And that's what happened this week against the Colts. That's really their formula. And I think that's about what they're going to be the rest of the year. Really about what the other team does, less than about what they do. Then the Miami Dolphins at number 9. So I bumped them up big time last week, getting Tua back after 3 straight losses. And this week they're dropping down after a win. And the game started and I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm so glad I boosted them up a bunch and doubled down on the Dolphins. And then really from about the 20-minute mark on, all I did was watch Tua try to give the ball to the other team. And it was a huge pump the brakes moment with this team. I love what they do offensively. I love the play calling. I love these playmakers. And I love Tua when he's on and hitting those guys in stride. And he does bring an ability for them to move the ball offensively. So I still have them ranked in the top 9. And I think still a little bit higher on this team. But it was a huge pump the brakes moment. Just being reminded that Tua does really like to try and throw interceptions, and more often than not, he gets away with it, luckily, but that's just not something you can expect. Defensively, they're really banged up, but they are incredibly resilient and impressive on that side of the ball. So they are going to drop down too. It's not the end of the world. I just probably put a little bit too much faith in Tua playing great, and I just don't think that's a part of this team's formula for success. I think it's everything else around them. Then the Vikings at 8, moving up 2 spots. Like I said, a good week to be on bye. They've had a pretty easy stretch with their schedule. Still waiting to see I think we still have to learn a lot more about the Vikings, and them being on bye this week didn't really help. But a good week to be on bye as they move up 2 this week. Then the Baltimore Ravens at number 7. Just not a very trustworthy team. I do think this is the right ranking, obviously. Offensively, they do it a little bit differently every week. They aren't perfect. Feels like they make a couple mistakes every week, but they definitely have the explosiveness to move the ball. Great to get Bateman back. And defensively, they really have settled in. It didn't start great in this game. They gave up 10 early points, but then really calmed down. The front seven's just playing much better. You've got Calais Campbell with a strip sack in this game. Owe, I think, had his best game of the year. Maybe you can get David Ojabo back. Patrick Queen has settled down. The defensive backs have played much better now that they're more comfortable within the system. The system is more comfortable with them and what kind of coverages they can run. And then, obviously, the health. Getting those guys back healthy has been big for them. So, settling in defensively, I think, is huge for this team. They are a little bit frustrating at times, but I think they're right there in the mix. Then the Niners at number 6, and you got to remember, me dropping them to 12 last week was mostly to do with injuries. We saw that Falcons offense have a lot of success against them. No Nick Bosa, no Shavarius Ward, no Jimmy Ward. They had a ton of injuries defensively. They're getting those guys back healthy. Injuries are reflected in these power rankings, so that's huge to get those guys. Now, that said, defensively, they did run into a buzzsaw this week against the Chiefs, but we know what that Niners defense is capable of when they're in there healthy and together. So I like the way this defense is going to shape up moving forward. And then I look at the offense and I'm like, you know what? They actually moved the ball pretty damn well against the Chiefs. Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, looks pretty good. You are probably going to get a costly mistake or two every week, and you just kind of live with that. But with Christian McCaffrey coming in here, and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle heating up here, I do think the Niners look pretty dang good. And they're going to be difficult to stop offensively. They're going to keep coming. And again, better defensive days are ahead. They had a good day of offense here against the Chiefs. It's just they ran into Patrick Mahomes on a good day. And that is, as we saw with that Bucs defense weeks ago, there's just nothing you can do when that offense is firing full cylinder. So they're going to wrap up that kind of drunk playoff teams tier, and the order of those teams is very difficult. So I think that's probably where we're going to have the most disagreement. But then I actually have a new tier here of the 5th and 4th team, because these are teams that I think I can say pretty confidently that they're pretty good teams. And that's the Dallas Cowboys at 5, who are going to drop down one spot here, and the Bengals at 4. So the Cowboys, I don't think looked quite as clean offensively as I would have hoped with Dak coming back. But defensively, we know how capable this team is. And like I said, I feel pretty confident to say that this is a good playoff caliber football team in the framework of this season. Got to clean some things up offensively, but still top 5 for the Dallas Cowboys. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, they took this spot from the Cowboys. It's not that the Cowboys necessarily are dropping here. It's just I think the Bengals have made a remarkable adjustment here going with this spread shotgun offense. They have basically abandoned the under center scheme that they ran here that was not working. Inefficient run game, inefficient play action game. Joe Burrow is just so much better under shotgun, able to get these receivers more involved. It opens up numbers advantages and lighter boxes for their run game. And everything is just so much smoother with these adjustments. And I think it's a real thing. This Bengals offense is here to stay. I do believe that. And I don't think this is a bad defense either. So I do think the Bengals took this spot from the Cowboys, but both of these teams stand out to me as very well-rounded, well-quarterbacked. I don't really want to say well-coached, but the coaching for the Bengals the last 2 weeks has impressed me. The Cowboys throughout the season has impressed me. So credit where credit's due there, I suppose. But yeah, feel good about both these teams. And then the Eagles, to me, are still in their own tier, a cut above anybody else in the NFC. So complete on bye this week, so we don't really need to hit on them. And then we have still that top tier with the Chiefs and the Bills. The Chiefs reminding us this week that, hey, just because we lost to the Bills last week doesn't mean we are a tier below them or anything else. Man, they are just firing on all cylinders offensively. The play calling, the perfect mesh of skill players here with Mecole Hardman on the jet sweeps as your gadget guy, Juju over the middle as your tough contested catch rack guy, MVS is the deep threat getting going this week. Kelsey doing everything he does. It is just the perfect mesh offensively. Second time this year where we've seen this group just blow up against a top defense in the league. And man, are they fun to watch. And then the Bills on bye this week, not going to be moving them after they beat the Chiefs last week. So there are your Week 8 NFL Power Rankings. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Please do drop a comment down below where you agree, where you disagree. While you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe. I also just want to throw out there before we leave, if you are buying tickets to sporting events, concerts, you name it, do it on SeatGeek and use promo code FranchiseGuy, where you will save $20 on your first purchase, and you'll support my channel in the process. That's all we got. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Peace out.